All right. It is 6:30, so we will get started. Hello, and welcome to the Parkville Living Center. I'm Marcus Flores, the founder and executive director. The Parkville Living Center is a zero barriers to entry community center, where our mission is to celebrate and make space for the spirit of love in our community. We have a wide range of programs and activities, such as weekly catered meal programs designed for seniors, but great for everyone, as well as town hall forums such as this, where we explore civic engagement and civil discourse, the concept of plurality. This country was formed on the idea that we could be individuals with personal beliefs, a county as a collection of those individuals, and then a state, and finally a nation capable of being both unique and united, not to be confused with homogenous. It's when our differences unite, that's when we're great, acknowledging, talking, and working through those differences, which is why the PLC holds these town hall forums, to listen, to think, and to hear. We may hear things that give us an emotional charge, and that's okay, but let's not react out of those emotions. Let's bring our thoughtful, clear, concise questions when the time comes. Tonight, we'll hear voices from both the affirmative and the negative vote positions, not more than 15 minutes each, and then a Q&A forum where I will come around with a microphone and you can ask a thoughtful and concise question, and there will be time for each of our presenters to answer those questions. We'll end at 7:45, so any questions not addressed by then will be emailed to our presenters and their answers posted on our website as they respond. Finally, all of this is being streamed on Facebook and will be on the Parkville Living Center's YouTube channel in the next couple of days as well. So please share your experience and encourage others to educate themselves in time for August 6th. We'll now be starting off with Presiding Commissioner Scott Fricker, who will spend a few minutes going over the ballot language we're discussing. Then Sheriff Owen and Commissioner Fricker will present on the affirmative vote for 15 minutes, followed by Gordon Cook speaking on the negative position for question 2. Then we'll have a short 2-minute break before getting into the Q&A, which will go until 7:45. So thank you, welcome, and here you go, Presiding Commissioner Scott Fricker.
Thank you, Marcus. This is a really valuable forum that you provide for the people of Platte County, and we really appreciate it. We appreciate the opportunity to get the word out about this. I'm just going to start with the actual language that you'll see on the ballot, on the August 6th ballot. There are 2 questions for this to pass. Both have to be approved, have to have a yes vote for the majority, and both to pass. Question 1. Shall Platte County, Missouri issue its general obligation bonds in the amount not to exceed $85 million for the purpose of designing, acquiring, constructing, installing, improving, furnishing, and equipping an expanded and improved inmate detention center in the county, including, without limitation, more areas to segregate violent and sexual offenders and to provide mental health care and education of inmates? Question 2. Shall Platte County, Missouri be authorized to impose a countywide sales tax for the purpose of designing, acquiring, constructing, installing, improving, furnishing, equipping, operating, and maintaining an expanded and improved inmate detention center in the county, including, without limitation, the payment of debt service on general obligation bonds issued for such purpose at a rate of 0.5% for a period of 20 years from the date on which the tax is first imposed? Okay. Yes. Can you hear that? Okay. So we're here today to talk to you about the Platte County Commission's plan to renovate and expand the inmate detention center. Current facility is 26, 27 years old. It had a lifespan of 25 years. It's unsafe, it's overcrowded, it's outdated. It needs to be retrofitted, and it's severely overcrowded. So we need additional beds. This problem has been around for almost 10 years. Various commissions have studied it, citizen groups. We've had numerous studies and all these things that have led us to where we are today. And in fact, in 2018, the commission put a measure on the ballot that was similar to this. Voters rejected it. And since that time, the overcrowding situation has just gotten worse. So as commissioners, we have put these two questions on the ballot, and we're thank you, and we're here today to discuss that. Sheriff's going to talk about the jail operations, the issues confronting him, and those sorts of things.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me be here. For you that don't know me, my name is Mark Owen, and I'm on my 46th and a half year here. So I won't, if this passes, I won't be here to see this jail get done because I'm done at the end of this term. But this was important enough to me to get involved and do, because I'm extremely worried about the safety of not only the inmates, but also my employees. And this has turned into a dangerous situation down in the jail. And I can get into that a little farther. The current jail, we started at 153, 154, 20 some years ago. About, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, we went back and I added bunks to take the population to 180. A jail is considered full at 85% of that number. So if you do that, you take that to 180, technically the jail is full at 153. Currently today, I have 217 inmates in-house. I have 10 out, I have 10 out, 5 in Cass and 5 in Buchanan, and 1 in the hospital. So my jail population today is 228. I don't have any place for 228 people. There's just no way to do it. It creates a situation to where we're starting to have more fights. The inmates are crowded, stuck in together. There's 3 people to a cell, sleeping. Some of them are on the floor. Those mattresses laying on the floor, if you've seen the pictures in the news and stuff, there's only one way to get a mattress in there, and some of it's by the urinals and stuff. So, you know, there's splash over off the urinal. There's people climbing over people to get out of bed. So this has turned into a situation that is very tense. The jail itself is, as Mr. Fricker said, is getting old. The idea to renovate it was to save money instead of trying to build double the size of the jail. But the idea was to do that because we can add an extension there, still be at the courthouse, not have to do the transportation. I don't have to go somewhere and hire a whole lot more people besides the jail staff just to haul people back and forth. It's safer. If you remember, the 2 Kansas City, Kansas, Wyandotte County deputies got killed. They got killed on a transport here a few years ago. So we minimize transport everywhere we can, the best we can. The jail is currently, in my opinion, falling apart. I have a handful of stuff here and I'll be happy to show you, but these are items that the inmates have broken off of old bunks, vents, beds, anything, door stops, and making weapons. And we're constantly taking this stuff out every time we have to shake the cells down. Somehow they got this door bolt out that was tag welded in. I don't know how they did it, but they've ground this to the point that the point on that will go through our bulletproof vests. So when I say I'm concerned about our people, it's our injuries to our officers as well. We've had several now that one of them's got an eye orbital fracture. We've got a fractured jaw. We got a couple broken arms. So it's turning worse in there as we go. Not only is this, you know, I hear stuff like, well, you can replace the vents and stuff. We can, but the pipes are all cast iron. So the pipes are going to have to be replaced. The flooring is going to have to be done. So there's a lot more to it than just the situation with let's replace a vent. To me, the idea was to turn around. We looked at it. They had the jail committee. And do we go outside? Do we stay inside? If we looked at outside, we had people screaming we couldn't leave downtown Platte City. If we stayed in Platte City, then it was, you know, it's going to cause a problem for the city. We've taken steps. We're in process for a vehicle right now to bid because there was a question about inmates getting released from the jail. And so we're going to start. We've got a van and an employee that will start. Those people get released, don't have rides. We'll go ahead and take them within a perimeter of somewhere where they want to go. The airport, Walmart, bus stop, house. I don't care as long as it's within that so that they're not downtown Platte City. So that's one plan. But to me, the other idea is if we build onto the jail now, then we know that'll be 3-4 years before it's done. So then we move the inmates out of the old jail over into the new part, and we renovate the old part, which is going to take a couple more years. So we're a minimum of 5 or 6 years before we're able to be what they would call full capacity, however you want to look at that. So when you hear these people say you're going to have all these ungodly beds and everything else to begin with, excuse me, that's not the case, because it's the time you get it renoed, you get it done, we're years down the road for that part of it to happen. So, I mean, I don't know what else to really tell you. I can. Mr. Zahn's not here. To give you an example, and I see Judge Hansborough here, and we've worked with the courts as well. They've got a bracelet monitoring program and stuff to where they can put inmates out, or actually they're not inmates. Maybe they came up, they go to court. The judges will turn around and use the bracelets and send them home and stuff like that. And that budget's increased, from like 20,000 to 300,000. Just for the stuff for them to have the tools to send these people, so we're not keeping them in the jail. The other thing that's going on is Mr. Zahn, and I had the opportunity to sit on his board, is the CARES program. And it's been a highly successful program. Somebody will commit a crime that first offender, maybe you got a person that shoplifted, something like that. They will do the diversion. They will grab them, see if they meet the requirements. They will put them into a diversion, probation type of a deal, education stuff, and they have to serve a certain amount of time and stay out of trouble and meet all of these requirements. And then they're released, and that charge goes away. So that it doesn't stay on their record forever, which can hurt them down the road, but it also keeps them out of jail. So there's this between this and what the judges have done and the bracelets. And I think we have tried about everything I know to try to keep people out of jail. The ones that I have, they're not good people. You'll hear stories about, well, there's people who don't need to be in jail. And, that's a matter of opinion. At the same time, there's one in there as an example. You look, it's a DWI, but it's a habitual DWI that actually ran over and almost killed somebody here not too long ago, and it may still end up being a manslaughter. So does this person still need to be in jail? Yes, because I don't want him out drinking and driving again, but that's not my choice. That's the court's choice. At the same time, if you go down the list, there's people in there, it looks like, okay, here's a narcotics violation, possession. Okay, well, it's possession of fentanyl, and we won't say that they were selling, but there was a good chance of it. But the first time they came to court, they didn't show up. They had a warrant. They showed up, got their arraignment, judge set a bond, and the people didn't show up. So the courts then issue a warrant, and they don't show up for court. Then we find them through whatever means. California called us on this one in particular and says, hey, we got this gal and she's here. So we send a team out to go pick her up. That cost us about $6,000 to go get them. Time you fly out, get them, bring them back, do everything. Come back, they go back to the court, and the court ups the bond or makes other arrangements, sends them back out. And so they go out, they don't show up again. And so we brought her back the second time from Florida. And then the third time we brought her back from Minneapolis. The judge says, I've had enough of this. You're not going anywhere. You're going to stay in jail until we get this done. Because all we're doing is spending county taxpayer money picking these people up all over the country. So there are people in there that looks like lesser charges, but there's a reason they're there. And that's all I ask, is if you look at that list, there's a background behind a lot of that and why they're still there. And, the judges and the courts and Mr. Zahn, everybody's really good about trying not to put people in jail if they don't belong there, or if we can do something. But there are just people that need to be there. And, most recently, I think we've got the gentleman that killed 3 people up on I-29 the other night. Driving the wrong way on I-29, killed 3 people. Took off running. We found him in the woods the next morning. He is currently in custody. We have 8 homicide suspects. We have child pedophile people in there. We have child predator sexual assault of children. We have child porn people. We have the person that did the crime. If you saw that one at Target, I don't know if you saw the news here a few weeks ago, that he went up, shoplifted a bunch of stuff out of Target. One of the security people tried to stop him. He knocked him down, and that person now has 13 stitches in his head. And the citizen that saw it going on tried to film it, and the guy tried to run over him as he was trying to escape. Well, they picked him up. He's back in jail and right where he needs to be. But if these people don't stay, then where are we at? We're just kind of similar to Jackson County. They're kicking them out about as fast as they can arrest them. And a lot of times the officers are like, I don't even know why I'm arresting because they're not going to do anything about it. I don't want these people out. My goal here, and I think all the law enforcement, Parkville, everybody is, we want to make the arrest or do whatever and get these people in custody. And if they're a threat to our community, then we want to hold them until the court's actually disposed of. So that's kind of where we're at. We've got 3 minutes. These are some weapons I took out of the cells, and I'll be happy to let you see them. I'll lay them out here. Look at them. These are the weapons they're finding themselves.
So I want to, excuse me, I want to close with a few things. So this is a difficult decision for the commissioners to make. It's a big project. It's expensive, costs a lot of money. This is not what we want to be doing with our time. People shouldn't have to be thinking about the jail, the situations in a jail, overcrowded situations, who's in there, who's not in there. That's our job to take care of. But because we need to expand it, we need your approval. I have three main principles that guided the commission as we made this decision. First of all, adequate jail space is an essential public safety tool. And public safety is local government's absolute #1 responsibility. It's number one. Number two, any acceptable solution needs to be adequate for a generation. No more kicking the can down the road. We need a solution, 25-year solution. Number three, we don't want to do anything that will result in financial hardship for the county in years to come. There's a lot of dissent in the public, not a lot of dissent. It's actually very little, but some of it is here tonight, and that's great. It's worth talking to. We need to talk about these issues. But our projections have half a dozen really, really crucial variables. Over 20 years, some of those variables will break in our favor, some will break against us. If we do as some have said, and you're going to hear this tonight, we should only have a 10-year sales tax. If we only have a 10-year sales tax, at the end of the 10 years, if we don't get the voters to approve a renewal, we have to raise property taxes. The beauty of sales taxes is they're paid in large part by people who don't live in Platte County. They're coming through the airport, they're shopping in Zona Rosa, et cetera. If we have to raise property taxes because the second 10 years doesn't get approved, your taxes will go from 6 cents today, which is extremely low, to a possible 41 cents, which is a 580% increase to pay for the sales tax that voters don't approve. We're not going to put Platte County taxpayers in that position, or the county in the position of not having enough money to fund the jail and the operations, which is why we have a 20-year sales tax. Those who criticize it don't have to deal with the consequences. In 10 years, if the county has financial problems as a result of us only doing a 10-year sales tax, I will be the one to blame. We're not taking that risk. So thank you for your time, and thank you.
Next time. Well, maybe we'll schedule 20 for the next one. All right. And so now, Gordon, thank you.
All right. My name is Gordon Cook. I am a 30-year resident of Parkville. And I have been, involved in this process going back. So couple just comments about my background. One, I don't do public speaking as a matter of practice. So if I look a little unrehearsed, you'll understand why. I'm a financial consultant. A CPA by trade, even though I'm not, I'm an inactive CPA. So if I'm a little unrehearsed, if I look unrehearsed, you'll understand why. My comments are based on my analysis and information that was made available to me or is out in the public domain. My purpose here tonight is to give you facts and information so you can make a decision regarding these two ballot questions. And I encourage you to consider the facts and the implications before you make that decision. So about some background from my involvement. I first got involved in the jail process back in 2014. There was a committee formed. I attended every meeting just as an observer. I ended up helping do some of the financial analysis. I created all the charts. and I edited and revised the committee's final report. And this is not intended to be a criticism, but one of the aspects that was interesting about that time was what I call the difficulty of getting jail related data and metrics. Ultimately, we got information, and one of the key factors from that time period was that there was a turnover in the judges that increased the jail population, so the matter was deferred. Then in 2019, there was another jail tax ballot. Again, I was not involved in that, but as it turned out, that ballot did not include any provision for maintenance and operating costs. As the paper labeled, and I labeled it, it's the cart before the horse. That ballot was defeated. 2019, with the expiration of the park tax, or the sunsetting of the park tax, I was asked by Ron Schubert to participate in that tax committee. I built a financial model. I worked closely with County Auditor Kevin Robinson to validate data. I worked obviously with the sheriff and the prosecutors and getting their information. Worked closely with two key committee members. Wes Minder was one, Aaron Schmidt was another, to get them through the details of the projection and ensure them that we had a credible projection. The law enforcement tax, was intended to provide funding necessary for, as estimated by each of the sheriff and the prosecutor offices. And in the words of Ron Schieber, it became the 10-year plan. I wrote the committee report. Committee unanimously approved those proposals, and both ballots were approved by voters. Okay, 2024, here we start. My first point of contact was in the middle of May with an email from Commissioner Joe Vanover that included some comments, some links. I asked for the projection. I was told that by him, quote, "I have studied the financial projections, challenged certain points, and seen the projections become more refined. I consider you," me, that is, "the voter most able to analyze the financial projections." So a working version of that file I received on May 17th. There were some broken links. I asked for more information. That was subsequently provided. The official version of that file was received from Wes Minder on May 31st. And it kind of put me in a predicament of, do I ask questions of the commissioner, or do I go some other avenue? And I chose the other avenue, which is to go public with my comments. This is a $408 million tax. I think it deserves more than just a few questions to a commissioner. And just for the record, I did have a rather long and very informative call with Major Holland. And for the record, I have not questioned a need to do something, and I have not ever made any comments as to the term of this tax. So what I ended up doing was writing 4 letters in a weekly sequential process as information became available. Those were all published in the Platte County Landmark. My initial review of the projection that was provided to me raised numerous questions. There's just a bit of background. If you're doing a projection, you want the financial cost elements to reflect what's actually going on and to be subject to what I'll call cost drivers or activity drivers. And overall, you want the projection to be materially credible. This model, as I see it, was largely void of those activity drivers. For the most part, the expenses were increased by an inflation factor of 4.2%. Boarding costs, I'm giving you some details as an example here. Boarding costs of $125,000 in 2024 were reduced to $10,000 in 2025 and then increased by inflation. Repair facility costs of $300,000 was an input in 2028. That's the first year that the new facility is open. Typically, you would expect that number to be 0. 300 was in there. I don't know the basis for that. Typically, you would want to estimate something based on a capital or what I'll call a maintenance plan or a capital replacement plan over the life of the facility. The inmate count exceeded the new jail capacity in 2036. 8 years after this new thing opens, we're at 102% capacity. The Garnos standard, if you read the Garnos reports, is that they should use 85% as being fully utilized. So with 480 inmates, they should be building a facility that has 565 beds. The biggest expense, sheriff staffing had two numeric inputs, one in 2024, another in 2028. Both of those were adjusted only by the 4.2 inflation factor. Some other examples, the debt schedule, the 4.5% debt payment table shows 18 months of interest to be paid on March 1st of 2025. That is obviously less than a year from the date that it issued, but we're going to pay 18 months of interest. Both the 5.5 and the 7.0% table showed interest payments to be made on March 1st, 2024. Most noticeable as I looked at this was that and excluding the debt component, was that all the expenses were included in what was considered in the 2020 law enforcement tax that was approved by the committee and the voters. That tax is split 72% to the sheriff, 28% to the prosecutor, after deducting a 10% reserve. That's been the case since that tax incepted. And just a point about building financial models, when you escalate your costs at 4.2%, which is obviously higher than the 3% revenue, you're going to hit a brick wall at some point. That should have raised some questions and caused some additional analysis. My second letter was about the double taxation and the overlap of the 2020 law enforcement tax and this new tax. Obviously, the commission was aware of that. It was also aware that they would be collecting excess taxes, at least based on some of the assumptions they made. The commission's response received in early July was there's too many variables and they don't want to be in a future deficit. Scott has already made that point earlier. A financial projection, and again, I've been doing this for 35 years, okay? A financial projection is a decision process tool. You want to get your variables lined up, you want to test your inputs, you want to test your ranges, and then at some point when you've done that, you make some decisions about what those final numbers are, and then you ultimately make a decision of go and no go, okay? You assess your risk, you assess the factors. Subsequently, if you make a decision to proceed, you look at what changes in your assumptions, you make adjustments in your projection, and to reflect that information, it is a business guide. It is a business tool. It is a guide for how you operate. It is a continuous process. My third letter the following week, the question I raised is what the commission is not telling us. There is no mention of the taxes to be collected in the commission's information page. $408 million does not appear. There's no discussion or mention of the debt rating problem, which is obviously related to the Zona Rosa COP. If you want to talk about COPs, I can do that at length and verbatim with how those work. And I'll be glad to do that, but I don't have time here. I noted that Platte County incomes are the second highest in the state, second only to St. Louis and St. Louis County. The financial advisor stated in the commission meeting that the county was worthy of a high rating. By a high rating, that means getting us restored back to the AA, which would put the interest rate on these bonds in the range of 380 basis point, 3.8%. I concluded at that time that it appears that the commission was desperate. Their first step should have been to secure the debt rating so they knew what the interest rate was going to be. And again, I view this as cart before the horse. Where's the financial advisor? Why isn't he, quote unquote, beating up the rating agencies, getting that addressed? Okay, this is our money, and you know, and again, I'm not dealing with whether we need to do something. I'm dealing with how we do it and what that cost is. To go to the market with a bond issue, not knowing what your interest rate is one public member wrote in the paper, like buying a house, closing on a house without knowing the rate until you get there. Unfortunately, the commission sent a very clear signal to the bond market that it's willing to pay whatever interest is necessary to get the funds. And by doing so, it failed to consider the assets of the public and the taxpayers. So my questions are, did the commission ask what was necessary to restore the pre-Zona Zona Rosa rating? And is the commission willing to tell us tonight what is needed to restore that rating? That's a critical issue to question number one. My fourth letter, as information again became available, was in regard to the jail experts' reports. And I looked at the commission information page. There is nothing of this sort on the commission's jail site or jail information site. The jail expert report from 2019, I found, or actually was not on there. I had actually subsequently obtained that. The April 2023 report update is posted in an area on the county's site, but if you don't know where to go, you don't know where it is. There, as it turns out, are numerous other jail updates that are not to be found. So how is the public supposed to make an informed decision when it doesn't even know what the jail expert is saying? The financial projection appeared to ignore the jail expert's data, and it validated, in my view, the questions I raised in previous letters. So my conclusion in that letter was the projection is unreliable. That is a technical term, okay? If you ask me what I might call it, I don't think it has much value. Useless might be a better term. The mail information, okay. So that concluded my 4 letters. So I took a rest. Then some new information appeared, one of which was a flyer received in the mail that says, I don't know who all got this, but it says 417 beds are needed now and for the future. So we don't have that many inmates, but we need 417 beds now. Then I was made aware that the Weston Chronicle, I have that their paper name correct. There's an article dated July 10th that talks about Platte County's financial guy, Joey McLiney, has talked with Clinton County commissioners to try to get them to sign an agreement that would guarantee Clinton County the right of first refusal on the open beds on a set per diem cost. Again, I'm quoting the paper article. Commissioner Joe Vanover explained that the agreement would help Platte County get money at 4.5% instead of the 7.5% expected if the county has to go to the bond market. So the projections include 7%. Now we're at 7.5%. If we're doing tax-free bonds, that 7.5% equates to a taxable equivalent of at least 12%. And if you look at the bond market, that is extreme junk. Another quote in the paper is, will some of the sheriff funding from the general fund shift to the new sales tax? And the answer was possibly. Then I found, or I was directed to the Clinton County Leader with a June 6th article. The Clinton County Commissioners met last Thursday with Joey McLiney, serving as, and again, I'm quoting from the article, serving as an advisor to Platte County. McLiney said the new jail could create more capacity than needed, which could benefit Clinton County, one of several entities in the region, including the city of Kansas City, that had issues housing its full prisoner load. Platte County, by including a rural area like Clinton County in its service area, could qualify for additional federal funding. I'm not sure that has been disclosed on the commission site once again. The commission issued a press release on July 10, stating that some people have challenged the financial plan. Obviously, that was a reference. I'm assuming that was a reference to me. If revenues, again, I'm quoting from their press release, if revenues come in more than expected, pay off debt, reserve excess funds, maintenance reserve, and as I understand, this current commission cannot bind future commissions to, I need a couple minutes, okay? To future spending obligations or taxing. It can bind them to debt obligations, but that's it. So my last point is, if I wrote another letter, my questions would be, why is the financial advisor negotiating with other counties without the Platte County voters knowing about it? What else is the commission not disclosing, or what else are they hiding? I expect them to be forthcoming with facts and information, and this appears to be intentional withholding. The jail expert Garnos report dated October 2023 projects 395 inmates in 2048. 12 years, that's 395 compared to the 480 that was used in the projection as of 2036. And that at an 85% capacity would require 464 beds, less than the 471 that is being proposed. Again, 480 inmates requires 565 beds. And there is a disconnect here. So, okay, can I just, 1 minute? So some questions I would ask: what if the new sales tax is approved, but the bond issue isn't, or vice versa? Has the commission reevaluated and updated the 2020 law enforcement projection model? And if the 2020 law enforcement tax is not renewed in 2030, how do they foresee funding the prosecutor's office, which is currently paid by that law enforcement tax? That's it. Those are my comments. I appreciate the time. If anybody has any questions, I guess you can ask them in the open session, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to take a short break, arrange the tables for our Q&A. And I heard some questions in there that I think we should probably start with internal questions. The questions you asked, perhaps we can start there, because hopefully those will answer some of the other questions. And we'll go here in just a few minutes. We'll take about a 2-minute break if you want to grab a drink, stretch your legs, and we'll have the table out here in about 2 minutes for the Q&A session. Thank you. All right, so
Back to the COVID number.
no, if you just keep them on and just, if you're not speaking, it won't catch anything. So I heard some really good questions already in the presentation that I'd like to pose to the panels, mostly coming from Gordon. If Sheriff Owen and Scott Fricker would start perhaps with some of those questions. Gordon, if you wanted to reiterate some of the questions you had in particular at the end, I think that'd be a great entry into the Q&A portion. Sorry, I forgot about the camera. So Gordon, off with you then.
Okay, the questions I posed were, what if the sales tax question is approved, but the bond issue isn't, or vice versa?
Well, we'll just have to see what the level of support is after the election and where the concerns are. This is not a problem that's going to go away. So if this doesn't pass, we're going to be back with another structure of some other kind of plan that we think has a higher likelihood of success. But again, we don't want a smaller facility because we don't want to have to do this again in 10 years. This is a 25-year plan. And we're gonna stick with that. Maybe there's some change to the financial structure. I don't know, but we're gonna focus on passing the plan that we have in place right now.
And just to clarify for the folks online, that question was, what would happen if one question passed and the other didn't? Just for the folks online.
Well, I mean, the mechanics are, if we pass question 1, we have the ability to issue $85 million in debt. But if question 2 doesn't pass, we don't have a source of revenue to pay the debt service on those bonds. So it just won't go forward until we have a source of revenue. County doesn't have the money to pay that, as well as the increased operational costs on an expanded jail, which will be substantial.
Thank you. Gordon, would you mind using the microphone if you have another question?
Sure.
Thank you.
The second one was, has the commission reevaluated and updated the 2020 law enforcement projection model?
I'm really glad you asked that. So as Gordon said, he prepared the projections for a 1/4 law enforcement sales tax that went into effect, I believe, in 2020. That plan is already $1.3 million underwater in terms of expenses. Gordon has a tendency to underestimate expenses. We threw that plan out over a year ago. It's worthless.
Can I respond to that? That projection was based on the information provided by the sheriff and by the prosecutor's office. It was synced up to current county operations. Again, they weren't my projections. I was the author of the worksheet, and I had no individual say so as to what those numbers were going to be. So I took the county's numbers, and that was what was included in the projection. So the assertion that I understate expenses is not true.
Okay, I want to explain the difference between a financial analyst and an elected official. The financial analyst doesn't need to be conservative. He just cranks out numbers with no regard for how they might actually turn out. He doesn't have to make a decision about whether or not to build a new jail, how big is the sales tax, how long should it last. Okay, these are things that the commission has to do. We were as conservative as possible in our numbers because there are half a dozen critical variables, a lot of variables, half a dozen, 6, 7 really critical variables in the model. Some of them will break in our favor. Some of them will break against us. If you look at
Well, if I could center
I
back
just-
on that question. So the new financial models are available online. Is that?
I don't know if the financial model is there, but a lot of the documents that Gordon said were not online actually are online.
Okay.
They're right
Okay.
there on our website /jail. So, but here's the point. We are, as I mentioned earlier, the commissioners are not going to put Platte County and the Platte County property taxpayers in a position of having a major increase in property taxes or potential insolvency of the county if we don't have sufficient funds. So we took a conservative approach to make sure that we would have enough money. If we have too much money, there are things we can do to mitigate that problem. Okay. The law enforcement tax that Gordon is talking about, his projections that we threw out after the second year expires in 2030. If we have too much money, we can decide not to ask the voters to re-up that tax. Okay. We can also, there's another part to the model that we can't count on. We have underwritten use tax as a source of revenue. Use tax is essentially sales tax that comes from online purchases. We're using that in our model as a source of revenue for the bonds, the debt service on the bonds. Future commissions can decide to do something else with that money. If the use tax goes away and is not allocated by future commissions to the jail project, that causes about a $75 million problem. Okay. So we have to take into account all of these variables and err on the side of conservatism so that the county is solvent in the future, because I have to live with that. If it doesn't work, that's my fault. Okay. I would rather have excess money. We can do other things. We can lower our property tax. There's other things we can do. We can eliminate the parks tax if there's excess revenue, there's ways to take care of these things. But if there's not enough revenue, your property taxes go up over 500%.
All right. I heard one more question at the end of Gordon's presentation that I'd like to be the last one that we start off.
Okay.
Or that we have.
The last one was, if the 2020 law enforcement tax is not renewed in 2030, how do they foresee funding the prosecutor's office, which currently receives 28% of that tax revenue?
Well, if we have, first of all, sales tax revenues are currently outpacing projections substantially. It wouldn't be difficult to fund the prosecutor's office out of general revenue if that continues. But we could not, it's possible, instead of eliminating the 1/4 cent, we could go to an 1/8 cent. It's not all or nothing on the law enforcement tax. If we have too much at a 1/4 cent, we could reduce it to an eighth of a cent. When you have too much money, you have options. When you don't have enough money, you don't have options. Gordon's plan leaves the county with not enough revenue because he doesn't think it should be a 20-year tax. Gordon thinks it should be a 10-year tax.
With all due respect, I have never said that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
No,
confusing him for someone else in the
don't
audience.
put
My
words
mistake.
in my mouth. Do not make assertions you can't
Okay,
back up.
my mistake. I apologize. Some people have said it should be a 10-year tax instead of a 20-year tax. Well, that would require that we renew it in 10 years. And if that doesn't happen, that causes a massive problem for the county. So.
Yeah, the question was how well.
Oh, I answered that.
Yeah.
We could renew it at a lesser amount.
Yes.
All right. We got those questions answered. And is there any questions here in the audience that we can start off asking? Anyone have a question? All right.
David Kopus. First, it's a two-part question. Do we expect the incarceration rate per 100,000 population to stay as it is today? Is it going to go up vastly? Which we are at about average with the rest of the nation, which I'd say is reasonable for a second richest county in the state. So that's the first part of the question. And if so, then why are we doing a 25 to 30% overbuild in capacity based upon the projection of the numbers of population? So that's, the hows, fine. This is why are we building an overbuild? We need to do something. Thank you.
Yeah, all of our projected inmate population numbers come from a respected jail consultant, Bill Garnos. His reports are on our website. You can find them. There are actually 3 versions, a 2019 or 2018, a 2023, and a 2024 update that included municipal inmates that apparently Gordon hasn't seen, but it's on our website. To answer your question, the population trends are the overriding consideration when projecting jail populations. We did not anticipate, Garnos did not anticipate any changes in incarceration rates because that's really, really hard to do. And you could, if you guess in the wrong direction and you yeah, we're not right. And the projections assume the same incarceration rates. We're not assuming any increase in incarceration rates. This is, if you look at the graph that I gave you right here, this basically shows you what the population is doing and then what the jail bed projections say. And they are tied to the hip. And
The latest study from Garnos put us at the end of it with the municipals and stuff at 264. Based on the projections of what he's saying in the populations.
As of what date?
The inmates population would be 264 at the end of the chart for that purpose. And it's going up. I mean, it kind of depends. It's going up faster than other days. I mean, and the thing you need to consider is they're going ADP. That's the average daily population. I've already had months in the past that are, 243 inmates. So they come in with an ADP of 196, but in fact, we had 240 in custody for a couple of days, or 243, I think was our peak. So I can't go just on what you expect or what they expect as an ADP. I've got to go for the up. Right. And that's the difference. Now, here's the other thing about the jail. And you heard us talk about the jail's full 85%. The 85%,
Would you mind
it's
speaking?
not like
into
a
the mic?
hotel. It's not like a hotel. If you got 100 beds, you can sell 100 beds. I can't do that in the jail. If I have these beds and I've got red tags, which are homicide and all of this, and the only beds I have available are in that cells, I cannot put a sex offender in that cell. So I have an empty bed. So calculating those in, we have to leave a 15% variable. So that's where some of the extra beds are when you take 15% of that.
I think if you go look at the Garnos report, you'll find the detailed methodology. Okay,
2024.
Okay.
Yeah, where's this 2024 projection? I have
on the
October
website.
2023, it's right here.
It's,
Ivan just said he looked good. It's not there.
it's there. It's called 2024 update or something. Yeah, I looked at it this morning. It's on the website.
Can I make, I
Please.
printed off the commission site yesterday. I didn't see any of those reports. If there's a link on there, I missed it.
Well, if it's a matter of making that information
For my
available.
purposes, my purposes, and I'm not in this finance thing. Let's get this out. I got a house to run, a jail and people to keep you safe, and I gotta have a place to put them. I need to do that and I need some places safe. Okay, I need some places safe, not only for us, but for the inmates, because I'm charged with keeping them safe as well.
Okay, that file is called graphs and tables. Okay, it should be labeled better than that, but it's there. Yeah, great.
So
There's only 6 documents, look at them all, you'll see.
which population are you talking about that?
All right, we're going to
Jail
move on to other
population.
questions right now. And if we have some time at the end, we can circle back to that. Thank you. We'll circle back around. Thank you.
First and foremost, I want to thank you guys for coming out and talking. I really appreciate it. You got it? All right, thank you. I appreciate you all coming out and talking. I really appreciate the conversation we've had because it's been very civil and I appreciate that. At the same time, I've got a question. One of the things that hasn't been talked about is the fact that once you've built this volume, are you going to be selling those off or putting folks in from other counties into and reaping those dollars to help pay the debt? No one's talked about it, but I think it should be, because you are like a hotel at that point. You are housing folks from other counties in that site. And the second, I've not heard anyone talk about maybe a multi-county approach to a jail. And I think that's something that ought to be talked about, because every county I've been in my life has said we need a bigger jail. So I think there's got to be some conversation around how might we partner together on something like that. I do understand the risk of transport, but if you had the right facility, transport becomes less important or as physically crazy because inmates are in the right amount of room, the density's correct, they're not as upset about being there. Maybe you can transport them back and forth. It also might be a good question to have for the judges. We've all done business by Zoom. Why aren't we doing that now with inmates? So I think there's some questions around that might save us some money, might get us a better facility all around. I think the most important piece is we've got to put folks behind jail that need to be there, and those that don't need to be out. And the last piece that I have a comment on is the children's fund that has been talked about is another way of us reducing the number in the future. And I really think we ought to be talking about those kind of preventive things as well, and you're not.
Well, I can answer part of those. Okay. Had there been a discussion about other locations, there was a question that they brought in a financial analyst to help set this up and do the performance and what do you need and all of that. One of the things that he said was, if I can go talk to, with your permission, can I go talk to Clinton County and see what they're going to do and if they're going to build a jail and if they would be willing to put somebody in your jail, if you could turn around and if that would agree to that, then we potentially could apply for a loan at a much less rate or bond repayment at a much less rate because we've now used rural federal money of some type. So that's where the conversation came, where he asked Clinton County about an interest, because Clinton County's talked about a jail, but they can't get it done. They don't have the means in that. We have had many discussions. Believe me, we've talked to Clay County. We met at the airport once and sat down. Kansas City was in the room. Clay County was in the room. We're in the room. Nobody's on the same sheet of music about doing a regional jail, things like that. Quite honestly, I don't want to do a jail for Kansas City. Those people, we housed some of them up here for a little while when Kansas City was having problems. Those people caused more damage in the jail and hurt more of our employees and other inmates than anything I've ever seen. And at that point, when Kansas City says, hey, we want to put some more, it's like, not no, but H no, we're not doing it. So that's why we're not housing, because they're inner city type of inmates that are there for a short period of time, depending on the court. And I honestly believe as Kansas City sent us the worst that they had in their jail, that were all their problem children, I think we got stuck with. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not doing Kansas City again. I don't care what they do for that. But I don't know if that answers a couple of your questions. We can't get with Clay County because Clay County thinks they're probably 5 to 7 years out. And our problem is much sooner than 5 to 7. So we've got to do something before that.
Did you address the renting out of rooms and the expense or the revenue of those dollars?
Well, is that possible? Yes. Right. We're going to have excess capacity, clearly, for some time. It's not a bankable source of revenue in terms of bond financing. We can't rely on it. We don't know what it is. To the extent that we get some revenue for that, we're going to consider it gravy. It'll go to the operations. It'll go towards paying down the debt, those sorts of things. So.
All right, any other questions? You can go.
Good evening, and for clarifications, I'm Kevin Robinson, the Platte County Auditor. You might have seen a release in last week's newspapers that I put out asking and raising some questions about the pro forma and some of the statistics. But the question I have specifically, Gordon asked it, but it got overlooked in coming around to this, is what is Joey or the commission doing regarding our credit rating? Because at 12% junk, it's going to cost the citizens millions of dollars in interest if we can't get our AA+ back, our rating back.
Well, former Commissioner Michael Short, who now works for CFL, came to speak to the commission, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 months ago to discuss exactly that issue. In his opinion, the interest rate at that time was going to be about 6.5%. Okay, we're underwriting this deal at 4.5% because Joey McCliney feels pretty positive about getting a USDA loan, which is a lower rate loan, which would be below the 4.5%. But we picked something between the USDA rate and what Mr. Short said the market would be. It's one of those variables that can cause a problem in a model that isn't conservative. But our model can handle it. That's one of the things that might go in our favor. Could be below 4.5. It could be more than 4.5.
Not 12.
It's not 12 though. That's crazy. I don't know who thinks that's a possibility, but it's Platte County is not junk status. Platte County had no obligation to make payments on the Zona Rosa bonds. It was held up in Supreme Court, and that is not an issue. It hasn't caused a problem with our bonds. Platte County has no debt and massive assessed value in terms of its ability to collect property taxes. So we will get a decent rate on the fact that this is a general obligation bond, which means the county has to make good on it, even if the sales tax isn't sufficient. And they know we will, because our property tax is at 6 cents. And the county valuation is so much that we could raise a significant amount of funds through property taxes. County is not junk. We have fantastic financial shape. Our reserves are fully funded. This talk about junk status is just not right. It's uninformed, frankly.
For clarification, the 12%, as I stated, is a tax equivalent. Assuming these GO bonds are tax-free for both federal and the state of Missouri, you assume an average tax rate. People that buy these are in the upper income brackets, say 35, maybe in 40%. So a tax equivalent yield is 12%. That, I'm sorry, is junk. Okay, a 7% yield is probably the equivalent of close to the equivalent of junk. I printed off today the bond schedule that was off Fidelity's bond site, full page, 2044 with maturity date bonds. The average yield, the yield to the worst is in the range, is in the low to mid threes. The highest I see is 388. The yield to maturity in most cases is right under 4. So 4.5% is not a AA rating. And I'm going to go back to the question: does the commission know what it takes to restore that rating? I have worked in the insurance industry for 40 years. Okay, there's a rating agency. If you're familiar with AM Best ratings, you've probably seen it in insurance or the marketing information for insurance companies. Okay, when AM Best, when those insurance companies go into AM Best and do their presentations to get their rating, they know what it takes to get that A rating. That's what they want because it tells the policyholders they have the financial stamina to pay claims at some point in the future. If you are buying insurance, you want the best rating you can get. You may pay a little more for an A rating than you do a B rating, but there's a reason for that. And Best can tell you exactly will tell every company exactly what it takes to get that A rating. So my question for you, Scott, is have you asked and do you know what it would take to restore that AA rating for the county? If you can get it there, then that bond yield comes back down into the 380 range versus 450 or higher.
That's an education process. First of all, taxable rates they don't even equate to what we're talking about here. It's a tax exempt deal. 6.5% is not junk status bonds. That is totally doable rate for us. We've stressed it to 7.5 and more. So how do we get it to AA? This is an education process. What the bond market sees, what the rating agencies see is they see the county having defaulted on their obligation to make payments to Zona Rosa. They don't understand the issue because they're not focused on it. The Platte County case with Zona Rosa went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court of the state of Missouri said Platte County had absolutely no obligation to make those payments. We should have a clean rating, and it's an educational process that we're going to go through with the rating agencies if this thing passes. I understand the concern about interest rates, and I mean, that's part of why we have some of the conservatism built into this model, but we're going to be fine. Platte County is incredibly strong financially. When the rating agencies actually take a look and they look at the Supreme Court ruling on that issue, they will find that we're actually a pretty darn good bet. And we're going to go through that process. We can also get bond insurance to get the rating down and or get the rating up. And so, I mean, there are things we can do. I hear the sky is falling and the rate is going to be 12% and all. I mean, these are not concerns. We're going to be fine on the rate, and that's just the way it is.
So I'm going to ask the same questions because I don't think you've answered them. Have you asked the rating agencies exactly what it would take to restore the AA rating? And secondly, have they told you what it would take for them to give you that AA? They're yes or no?
I have not had a personal discussion with them. I believe Joy McCliney has. I think this is a detail that we will work out. It is not significant.
Okay. I respectfully disagree. I think it is one of the most significant issues in this entire matter.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Hi, Steve Burton. I'm not so much concerned about that as I am, and I'm directing this specifically at Mark. It's not that I'm concerned about the building of the jail. The question is are you building it too small? You and I have both been around long enough how fast a jail fills up.
Yeah.
And by the time you get through 5 to 8 years of construction to build a new one, you're going to be right back in the same situation you are now. And the other thing is the information that you've been putting out tonight, I heard it referred to that you had given that information out to the Landmark and to Weston. Why are we not getting it down here?
Well,
Okay.
with regard to your second question, we're not giving any information to them. We send out press releases periodically. Those go to the press. I mean, we can post all those on our website if you'd like. We don't typically post press releases on the website. We can do that under the jail page.
People are out there, they have to dig it, they're not volunteering.
I think most of the data is on the website. If there's anything missing, we'll get it up. If anything's missing, we'll get it up right away.
Steve, on that part, I mean, I've tried to be open with everybody from any paper. It doesn't matter. You got a question or Major Holland, just like Gordon said, he's talked to them. I mean, we've talked, I mean, and the media's been here. We had media days last week and early this week, and some of the media was with us. Beth was there. We've had Channel 4, Channel 9. We've tried to be as transparent as I know how to be and answer. Well, I can't tell you. I mean, our crime rate. You and I are old school. I mean, my first jail, as you well know, you and I started with 16 beds was the first jail we started. This would be my fourth. So, my point, all I can do is predict crime based on where we're at right now. I can't tell you what it's going to be in 3-4 years. I know that the crime, most of it that's occurring up here is not Platte County residents. We're being infiltrated from the south, the inner city, the west. And these people come up here and Jackson County puts them in jail for 3 months, says time served. We put them in here, wait and go to court, and the honorable court sends them to prison where they ought to be. So they're not out doing it again for a while. But I can't tell you how often that is. What I can tell you is we had a burglar here a while back, and we caught him. And, I asked him finally, I said, why are you up here? What made you come up here off of I think it's Bellefontaine down in the city. And he goes, and I quote, so mind the word here, is y'all got better shit. So I said, okay, what's that mean? And he goes, you got more expensive stuff. It's easier for us to sell. We make more money and it's in better quality and quantity than what we got down there. So that's why we come up here and do it. Okay. That was a new one I hadn't heard before, but, and obviously you got something you want to say? Go ahead.
No, I was going to say there are a couple lines that are fairly straight and consistent. One is the population growth, and I can give you data showing that Platte County since the late 80s has grown by about 1 to 1.5% a year. It's fairly consistent. Some years it's 2, some years. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And you've got the future growth
yeah,
projections going as well.
That's the historical look. The second one
Right.
that's fairly
No, this is not. I mean, it's just like the other day I was at 189. Hey, life's good. Jail's happy. Today I'm at 228. Now 10 of those are housed out. We're paying for housing out. We're paying for 15 trips back and forth to Cass and hauling these people all over the place and paying overtime to do that. And I got one down in the hospital. I got 2 people sitting on, because of the type of inmate that he has to have security on him the whole time. So long story short, I'm still sitting with 217 people in a bed or in a jail that I should be at 153. But if you push the issue, we've gone to the 214, and we've got people on the floor, but we're starting to have issues. We're having fights. We're having, overcrowding issues. And, someday if this doesn't fix this one, somewhere down the road, I honestly believe you'll have a court order that says you're going to make a jail. And, that it's happened before in this county. And I think it was 2 back. If I remember right, and maybe you remember, Steve, but I know we had a court order that said you either fix it, and they said, we'll put it on the ballot and see, and the court held it until they saw if the ballot passed, and it did pass. But, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not projecting numbers, so I know that I need enough number at the end of the day to pay for the new jailers, medical increase. We're fighting with them right now. They walked in the door, I don't know, 60 days ago, right in the middle of a contract, and says, hey, we're going to raise this, almost 64% in the middle of a contract. And it's like, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it's like, what do you mean we're under contract? And they said, well, you either pay it or we're going to do the severability clause and cut you off, and you can go out and do it again, do somewhere else. So we threw them a little bit of a bone at the time. And then we're out for bid right now on all the medical right now to see if we can get this back under control. But all of the medical is through the roof, as with anything, food cost, everything. Now, we have a contract medical team that has got nurses. We have a contract medical team that has nurses, and the doctor comes in once a week. If it's an emergency, then we take them down to the hospital. And, but we're trying to stay in-house, common cold, do things like that. And at the same time, I'm trying to worry about a jail that is overcrowded, and God forbid I don't have another COVID situation, because I don't have any place to separate like we did already. As we know, the new jail does have positive ventilation, and I'm assuming when we retro, we will do that so we don't have to deal with the COVID crap again of trying to isolate people and put them 12 over here and somebody over here for 14 days because he just committed a homicide, but I got to figure out where to put him for 14 days so that he's not infecting anybody else. That's the other issues that people don't see, the inner workings of the jail, and it's a little city. So I got off your question probably, but did I answer it?
Well, I'm going to give you,
Can I make a quick comment?
okay.
I just want to clarify for those who heard Scott say referring to me, my projection, my numbers. I didn't create any projections. I used their data, their worksheet, their numbers, and their factors. All I did was do some calculations based on that. So these are the county's numbers, and this is what they're projecting. And the calculations in several cases are inaccurate, in my view.
Well, I want to be respectful of the time. We have another question. One more question, last question. And then what I want to say though, is that what Sheriff said is that everyone here is accessible and this information is available. And so the questions that may not get asked on the microphone, we'll channel to these folks and we'll put it on our website, and we will continue to have the questions raised and listen for answers, because I think that's what we're all here to do. We're all here to get an understanding of what's going on. And so I'm very excited to know that their accessibility will allow these questions to be answered, even if it's outside of this venue. We have had a lot of great conversation, and I'm just so glad that everyone showed up and that we can have this conversation in this forum, and that, we're not picking on any person. We'll figure out how to look at the data and ask the questions about the information and kind of keep the people, the individuals out of it going forward. I believe that having that clean information is kind of cuts through some of the emotion that I was referring to earlier. But thank you for giving me my 5 minutes. Now I'll give the question back. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Angie Witt. I have a question. So when I read the ballot language for question 1, that made sense, 85 million build a jail. And then when I looked at question 2, it was the 400 million for the rest of it. Is there, you guys are getting in the weeds about bond ratings and I don't know, actuaries and things like that, which is a little bit beyond what average Jane voter can probably take. At least it's difficult for me. Let's just put it that way. What I'm wondering is there just like a pie chart or something that sort of explains the percentages of what the 454 million will support? Like you're talking about medical, Sheriff Owen, and I know I'm sure there's food and all the stuff with security and safety. Is there just like a pie chart to show what is included in that?
Yeah, it doesn't exist today, but it would be easy to create. I'll take care of that. And yeah,
I think we could do a pie chart, because I think you need to understand that, when you see that money, you got medical inmate costs, you got food costs, you got, additional staffing costs, you've got transportation costs, you got fuel costs. Power and light is huge by itself, just for the facilities part. We tried to do everything we could on the design of this jail to minimize that. We went to precast inserts in the cells, saved millions of dollars doing that. I think by renoing, we're saving millions of dollars versus building a new building. But there's a list, but you got only like 26 new employees. Obviously, you're going to have more vehicles traveling. There's a long list in there. And I think that was all part of Joey's. They brought in a financial analyst and consultant to look at this. He's the one that did the pro forma, looked at the 3/8 and said, here's where it is, and it's not enough, or 3/4, or whatever it was. It's not enough. And we looked at it and said, okay, and then they said it was a half, and yes, there could be money left over, but if there is, you can put it back in the jail, you can use it whatever you need. If it's not, because you have a recession or you don't have enough money, we're not back into hitting people for property tax. So they were trying to be cautious with that, but I'd be happy to work with them on it. We've already got everything that was broke out of what the costs were.
Just generally speaking, and I don't remember the numbers exactly, but let's say the construction costs are roughly $80 million. There's $5 million in financing costs roughly. There's an additional 25 or $30 million in interest on the debt. And the balance, which is over $300,000, is operational expenses. I mean, that is the 75% of the total. And it's really hard to, Sheriff was talking about medical costs. I mean, this massive increase here in the beginning of this project that we're trying to project for really caused a problem for our model. I mean, if we took those increases and projected them out, it would just be unsustainable. So despite 40% over the next couple of years, we have 8% for medical cost inflation in the model. It's operational costs are just, we don't have the revenue source to pay for that at the county. And so that's why, I mean, that's largely why the property tax is the size it is.
Can I ask one question
Sure.
to Gordon?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Gordon and I get along.
Not on your mic. Yeah.
We get along just fine, but Gordon, if you don't agree with this formula, what would you do to pay for this and how are you going to get it done?
Well, as I said in my first letter, I don't know what the tax rate is or should be because I don't have the data. I haven't prepared anything. I haven't been involved in anything. I go back to, I understand the need, and I never questioned the need. What I questioned is the financial structure. And when you talk about medical costs, your estimate of medical costs is based on 480 inmates as of 2036, and that stays flat until the end of the projection. So your first, the first thing that has to be corrected is what the inmate count is. And then the factors and expenses have to be driven based on what drives those costs, be it boarding, be it whatever the case is. And that becomes the basis for your model. And,
So how do you figure that out 20 years ahead of time? I mean, all the
Well,
projections,
because
everything we're working on are good for about the first 5 years.
well,
And
exactly.
then afterwards, it's a pie in the sky and you're good.
Well, but you make a decision based on the best information you have, okay?
Or
If
2
you're
years
gonna
if
do
it's
it
a
on
long
3 years,
tax.
then if you're gonna do it in 3 years, then you do what you've done, which was like, okay, we'll do a quarter and a quarter. So like, if you're gonna do a half a cent and you think you're gonna pay off the bonds early, there's nothing in this language that says you're going to shut off a half a cent sales tax. And my experience with taxing entities is they don't reduce taxes. So a half a cent is going to go on for 20 years and you're going to have money available and you can say you're going to do something with it. The fact is you have no say. If you're not on the commission, you have no ability to mandate what that future.
Well, you say we're going to have excess cash. That is not necessarily the case. If you look at the back of the front page, I've created 8 different scenarios where variables go up and down in different rates. There are 6 scenarios where we are underwater. You cannot say with certainty that we have too much money. That is absolutely not possible to say. And if you want a 10-year tax or whatever shorter term, I mean, that's just
again,
financial
I
suicide.
have never said anything about a 10-year tax. You keep saying that.
No,
I'm going to keep correcting you.
I remember the treasurer said something about
It's not,
10-year, yeah.
for
10-year
the record,
tax,
I have
and,
never said that.
But I don't
Okay.
know how I'd go buy a house.
But you do have, when you do again, when you prepare a financial model, you take the best information you have, you get your revenue factors lined up, your cost factors lined up, and you make some decisions, okay? Telling me that anything beyond 3 years is irrelevant. Yeah, it's math. I get it. But at least I have a plan.
All right. Well,
That's exactly what we did. That's
Well,
exactly what we did.
we're going to end here tonight. It sounds like maybe Gordon could be on that committee next time, right? And help iron this
I
out.
don't
from
know
the
when-
beginning.
When we had to throw out the LE tax after 2 years, I'm not so sure.
All right. Well, so I want to encourage everybody. We will have the questions that didn't get asked because it is now close to 8 o'clock. I'll get your questions posed to the folks and posted on our website, parkvillelivingcenter.org. And I also want to strongly encourage you to spread the word about the election on August 6th. We have information about how to get absentee ballots, how to get those notarized, any question you may have about voting, we can help you with it or connect you to the resource to get answers as fast as we can with the election coming up on August 6th. we hear, you know, this is a something to be informed about and to continue to be informed about, because I'm not sure we tied a bow on anything here, but it was great to hear this information in one forum, in one place. I know I've been hungry for that. And so I just am very grateful that you guys can come up here and respectfully communicate the position so that we can be as informed as possible. This doesn't happen any other way. So thank you all so much for coming, for being present, for presenting, and for attending as well. And again, let's just get the word out to vote so we can move forward however our citizens determine to be the way.
The other thing I would say is when you're taking questions that have been answered, the architect is here, HMN, that helped design this and come up with the numbers on the building and facility. But if they have questions
Right.
in regards to the actual building structure, what it's doing, anything, please feel free to submit those as well, and we'll get them to HMN and he can answer those back for us as well.
Certainly, we will do that. We'll have those on our website, and we'll have those up here in the next two days or so. We'll have this edited as well. Thank you all for your participation, your attendance, and please forward any questions to me, Marcus at parkvillelivingcenter.org, or just hand them to me if you're here, and we'll get those forwarded up to our panelists. Thank you very much and have a great night.
Thanks, Marcus.